If you're trying to figure out where to stay for the 2026 World Cup in Los Angeles, here's the piece almost nobody is really spelling out. The Coachella Valley is quietly turning into luxury home base for SoFi Stadium, and a lot of the most desirable homes are already being booked a year to a year and a half in advance.
We're watching this unfold in real time. More international fans are reaching out. More people are planning multi-week trips, and more groups are skipping crowded LA hotels in favor of private homes in Palm Springs, Palm Desert, La Quinta, Rancho Mirage, Indio, and Cathedral City.
We are Payal.
And Amy.
We live and work right here in Coachella Valley. Our days are spent talking to buyers, sellers, and investors, and the World Cup 2026 demand wave that's building right now in most of the interesting shifts we've seen in this market.
In this video, we're going to talk through exactly why World Cup fans are booking desert homes 12 to 18 months ahead of time, why they're willing to stay for about 2 hours from SoFi Stadium, what the real pricing tiers look like from entry level to ultra luxury, and what all of this means if you're thinking about buying or selling or investing before the tournament.
We are also going to walk through the same question people are already typing into search engines and asking AI tools: how far the desert really is from SoFi, what dates matters the most, how the numbers tend to pencil out, and whether this is still a smart move or you have already missed the window.
So by the end, you'll have a much clearer picture of whether the Coachella Valley actually fits into your World Cup plans and how you might want to position yourself if you own property here or you're thinking about it.
To understand why this is happening, you have to start with the World Cup itself. And what it looks like in Los Angeles, SoFi Stadium isn't just hosting one match, it's hosting a stage of games spread over weeks. That includes the US men's national team opener, multiple group stage matches, knockout round games, and a quarterfinal on July 10 of 2026.
That July 10th quarterfinal is especially important because it's the only quarterfinal match happening in California. For fans who want a big moment, that date becomes a magnet. They plan their trip around it. They look at the schedule and build in the games they care about most. And then they start filling in the rest of the trip around those anchor dates.
Once you realize there are multiple key matches in one city spread across June and into July, it stops being about one night in a hotel. It becomes about where you want to live for 10 days, for 2 weeks, sometimes even for 3.
That's when the conversation shifts away from what's the closest hotel to the stadium. What kind of place do we actually want to stay in for that long? And that's when options like the Coachella Valley start to make a lot more sense.
Let's walk through some of the core questions we get from people who are just starting to think it's through. The first one is simple. How far is Coachella Valley from SoFi Stadium? On a normal day, you're looking at roughly a 2-hour drive from the valley to Inglewood. Traffic, time of day, and route choice all matters, but 2 hours is a fair planning number.
The second question is, when is that key quarterfinal? The quarterfinal match at SoFi is scheduled for July 10th, 2026. For fans who want to be part of a high-stakes knockout game, that date is circled on the calendar. It sits in the middle of a wider tournament window, which gives people a reason to stretch their stay out on both sides.
The third question is, does it really make sense to stay 2 hours away from the stadium? And the answer depends entirely on what kind of World Cup trip you are envisioning. If you are flying in, going to a single match, and flying home, you may want to be as close as possible. But if you're planning a 10 to 21 day trip, your priorities change.
During a long stay, people start to think, less like hotel guests and more like temporary residents. They want a place to unpack, to cook meals, to do laundry, to host a few friends, to relax on days when they're not at the stadium. Suddenly, the idea of trading some drive time for more space, more privacy, and a better daily environment doesn't just sound reasonable, it sounds appealing.
Another question we hear a lot is whether it's actually cheaper to stay in the Coachella Valley than in LA during the World Cup. The answer is that for many families and groups, yes, it can be. When hotel rates in central LA rise for a global event, booking multiple rooms can get very expensive very quickly.
When you compare that a 3, 4, or 5 bedroom home in the desert with a private pool, a full kitchen, and plenty of indoor and outdoor living space, the per person nightly cost often ends up being competitive or better, especially once you factor in the day-to-day experience.
That leads into another big shift we are seeing, the length of stay. This is not a situation where most people are looking 1 or 2 nights and moving on. A lot of the people reaching out to us are planning trips that last between 10 to 21 days.
They might be following their national team throughout the group stage, hoping to see them in the knockouts. They might want to catch matches in different cities. They might be building in time for sightseeing, beach days, and a true vacation. However they structure it, what they're not doing is flying across the world for a 24-hour whirlwind.
As soon as a trip stretches beyond a few nights, the limitation of a typical hotel room becomes obvious. You're eating every meal out or relying on delivery. You're trying to store a family or a group worth of clothing, gears in a small space. You might not have laundry in your room. You have very little privacy if you're sharing that space with other adults.
A home changes that equation. With a house in the Coachella Valley, you can unpack once and settle in. You can grocery shop and cook when you want to. You can throw a load of laundry in while you relax by the pool. Kids can go to bed while adults are still up talking. Friends can spread out into separate bedrooms instead of sharing hotel beds.
There's also a psychological aspect. When you walk into a good vacation home, especially in a place like desert, it feels like your own little world for the length of your stay. It doesn't feel like you are just passing through. For a lot of World Cup travelers, the feeling is worth a lot.
Another pattern we're seeing is the idea of splitting the trip into distinct phases. The first phase is about being plugged directly into the World Cup environment, staying in or near LA, being close to SoFi, feeling the crowd energy, visiting fan zones, and soaking up the intensity.
The second phase is about recovery and real relaxation. That's where the Coachella Valley comes in. After a stretch of matches, crowds, and city traffic, people want calm mornings, blue skies, pools, golf courses, hiking, spas, and quiet nights. They want to decompress before they fly home.
Sometimes people put the retreat phase in the middle of the tournament. Sometimes they put it at the end. Either way, the desert gives them a place where they can still drive back for crucial matches if they want to, but they're not living in the middle of the chaos the entire time.
This is especially appealing to travelers in higher price brackets. Many of them are used to curating their trips so that they have a balance between action and rest. They might have done this for other events around the world, and now they're looking at Southern California through the same lens.
That brings us to the way properties are stacking up in terms of demand and pricing. Not all desert homes are in the same category. When we look at the market, we see 4 broad tiers that help explain what people are actually booking and why.
The first tier is entry-level condos and townhomes. These tend to be 2 or 3 bedroom units, often in or near more walkable parts of the valley. They might have shared pools, shared gyms, and community amenities, rather than private backyard.
These homes appeal to smaller groups, couples traveling together, or budget-conscious travelers who want a comfortable place to stay without stretching into larger price tags. They're a step up from a hotel room in terms of space and functionality, but they don't usually offer the full standalone home experience.
The second tier is mid-range pool homes. There are 3 or 4 bedroom single-family homes with private pools, private backyard, and more of that classic desert house feel. They are scattered across neighborhoods in Palm Desert, La Quinta, Rancho Mirage, Indio, and similar areas.
For many World Cup travelers, this is the ideal balance. There's enough room for a family or for friends traveling together. Everyone can have a real bedroom. There's a pool to enjoy on days off. There's a kitchen and living space that actually works for daily life. It feels like home, just in a sunnier location.
The third tier is gated country club retreat. In this category, you are looking at homes inside guard-gated communities with golf courses, clubhouses, fitness centers, and sometimes restaurants and spa services on site. These properties typically offer 4 or 4 more bedrooms and a higher level of privacy and security.
This tier tends to draw higher net worth travelers and corporate groups. They want something that feels like a resort, but they also want the privacy and control of their own residence. They like the idea of having guard gates, manicured grounds, and shared amenities layered on top of their private space.
The fourth tier is ultra-luxury estates. These are the big headline properties, large lots, architectural design, dramatic mountain views, guest casitas, outdoor kitchen, multiple lounging areas, and sometimes features like home theaters or expansive game room.
From a World Cup perspective, these estates are aimed at groups who might otherwise be booking several high-end hotel rooms or even a reserved block of suites. Instead of a row of identical rooms, they're getting an entire compound where they can host, relax, and feel completely separate from the rest of the world when they close the gate.
Across all 4 tiers, we notice a few consistent patterns. Properties with more bedrooms, a pool, and a strong outdoor living space attract the longest stay. Homes that are beautifully presented, well furnished, and thoughtfully set up for a guest tend to draw repeat interest faster. An owner who thinks ahead instead of trying to capitalize last minute usually end up with better outcomes.
If you already own a property in the Coachella Valley, this demand is a signal. It doesn't mean you have to turn your home into a short-term rental, but it does mean the market is telling you something about what people value and what they're willing to pay for during a major global event.
The first thing owners have to understand is the regulatory landscape. Every city in this valley has its own approach to short-term rentals. Some are very strict, some are more flexible, and almost all of them have specific rules that need to be followed. You cannot assume what's allowed in one city is allowed in another.
The second thing is to evaluate your property honestly. Does it have features that would make it attractive to guests coming for something like the World Cup? How many people can it accommodate comfortably? How does the outdoor space feel? How updated is the interior? How well does it photograph?
The third thing is timing. Owners who give themselves time to research the rules, improve the property where needed, and plan a realistic strategy will always be in a better position than owners who try to throw something together a few months before the tournament starts.
On the flip side, if you're a buyer or investor, the World Cup is a lens you can use to evaluate opportunities, but it shouldn't be the only reason you consider a property. An event like this is intense, but it's also temporary. You want a home or an investment that makes sense before and after the World Cup as well.
Ask yourself how a property will perform in normal peak season, during festivals like Coachella and Stagecoach, during snowbird months, and during quieter periods. Does it have the right mix of location and amenities to stay desirable? Or is it the only appealing in the every specific context of a single event?
The properties that stand out to us are the ones that check multiple boxes. They sit in cities with rules you can understand and plan around. They have that combination of bedroom count, pool, and outdoor living that guests consistently want. And they're in neighborhoods that feel inviting, whether there's a major event happening or not.
If you were already thinking about buying in Coachella Valley, the World Cup is an added confirmation that this region is visible on a global stage. Fans from around the world will discover the desert for the first time during this tournament, and many of them will come back later as regular vacationers or even as a future buyer.
The important thing is not to get caught up in the idea of a quick win. Real estate here, especially at the higher end, rewards people who think in longer timelines. The World Cup can be an exciting moment within that timeline, but it shouldn't be the entire story.
If you take nothing else from this video, remember this. The 2026 World Cup is not just a series of games in Los Angeles. It's a multi-week global event that is already influencing how people think about where they want to stay, where they want to invest, and how they want to experience Southern California.
The Coachella Valley is positioned as the quiet, resort-style counterpart to the intensity of LA during that time. For some people, that will make all the difference in how they remember their trip. For others, it will be the moment they realize they want a more permanent foothold out here.
We'll be here watching it unfold day by day, working with homeowners, buyers, and investors who want to move thoughtfully instead of reactively. If you're one of those people, we hope this gave you a clearer view on what's coming and how to think about.
If you'd like to see more conversations like this about desert living, short-term rentals, and how big events intersect with our local real estate market, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what we share next.
And if you have questions or you're thinking about how this might apply to your own situation, feel free to share in the comment. We do read them, and they are often where the best future topics come from.
We're Amy
and Bio.
If you'd like to talk about your plans for the World Cup or the Coachella Valley in general, or let us know what team you're cheering on for, you can reach us at 760-880-2028.
224-717-9423.
Be sure to hit subscribe, be sure to like, and be sure to mention your favorite team. Talk to you soon.